Good morning. I'm Laura Young. Welcome to this time together. You know, it's all right to admit that you are struggling right now. Let me help you understand that you may be going through grief. Sometimes we think of grief in the sense of a huge howling hurt, howling loss. However, during this time of uncertainty and change, all of us are experiencing grief in different ways, different levels of grief. And some of us don't really know what's going on with us, but knowing truly we don't feel the same. I had a woman tell me, you know, the only way I was able to wind down from my job was through getting massage and a pedicure. And now these two things are forbidden by virtue of the virus, and I simply don't have other strategies in place. So we talk about changing over to other strategies, which we all have to do in this time. Life is messy. Let's look at it. Life is messy. Usually in life, we have what I consider two tracks. We have two parallel tracks. We have times of joy and good feelings, but then we have times of struggle and discouragement, and such is now. I want to read to you a couple of stanzas of John O'Donoghue's poem, For Grief. When you lose someone you love, your life becomes strange. The ground beneath you gets fragile, and your thoughts make your eyes unsure. And some dead echo drags your voice down where words have no confidence. Your heart has grown heavy with loss, and though this loss has wounded others too, no one knows what has been taken from you when the silence of absence deepens. There are days when you wake up happy again, inside of you the fullness of life, until the moment breaks and you are thrown back onto the black ride of loss. Days when you may have your heart back and you're able to function well, until in the middle of work or encounter, suddenly with no warning, you are ambushed by grief. So in the situation of contracting the virus or losing someone you love, we understand that howling hurt. We understand the depth of that kind of grief. However, we do not give ourselves time to reflect and look at the different losses that we have experienced, which have to be grieved, maybe in not a major way, of course, like a loss of a loved one, but our losses need attention, and the reason our losses need attention is in order to not drag it around like a dark shadow, getting in the way of making space to go forward. I have talked to several people over the last few weeks, and I've had some women say to me, I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't get motivated. I am having trouble getting back to my old self. Well, really, they're in grief. They're in grief with the freedom they've lost. Some of them are in grief losing the camaraderie of their peers and working alone. Some of them are in grief because their children are out of school and unable to do the usual things that children are able to do, and also then the homeschooling, which also takes away the freedom of parents. Some marriages that have been sticky to begin with are having more difficulties right now. The difficulties are more glaring. I had a little girl say to me, I feel like crying, but I'm afraid to. When I cry, my mother gets very sad, and I don't want to make her any sadder because she and daddy are fighting a lot, and I'm afraid of what will happen. So the child has taken upon herself the burden of suppressing her fears, suppressing what she wants to express. What I would encourage you to do is to sit with your children or your grandchildren and allow them to express. Don't try to cheer them up. Really, really hear them. Really, really listen. Let them say whatever they need to say to get it out. Sometimes children take in anxieties that their parents are carrying, but they don't know what to do with those anxieties. So help them by being present. And I know when things are uncertain and things are happening faster than we could ever prepare for, the uncertainty leaves us in a state of anxiety. You may go back, if you're having anxiety or trouble relaxing or trouble reflecting, you may go back to some of my previous talks where I help you understand how to stop the inner frenetic thinking and to get into a space of allowing yourself to relax and allowing your body to relax, which helps the mind, So what we all have lost. Part of our job is not to deny what we've lost. It doesn't have to be a howling hurt to leave an imprint on our soul, a fear, an anxiety. Part of it is sitting and actually taking the time to reflect on what you've lost. You know, for me, there are certain things like I'm not going to the office. I miss the presence of my clients. It means a lot to me to be able to sit across from them or by them and to really feel what they're going through and see what they're going through. I miss that. We do the best we can with phone and with Zoom, but it's not the same. I miss going to the gym and being able to freely work out my body. I am taking walks. I feel blessed. I feel safe. Being able to take walks in my neighborhood, that I work at having much gratitude for. But it doesn't mean you have to sit and cry and sob about the losses. It means each and every loss that you experience needs attention. And then decide if you can let it go or if it needs more attention. And when you let it go, what are you going to put in its place? Quite often people say to me, I can't wait for this to be over. I want it all to be back the way it was. I really want the old way back. Well, I listen and I know things won't be back the way they were. I think this shakeup is such, if we would look for the spaces in it to create some new ways of being in life, it doesn't need to go back to the way it was. It needs to be better. It needs to be more. I have found myself with things going on, like my watch broke, okay? I don't want to go in and get a battery put in it right now. So I go out for a walk. I'm usually going out for a walk. It's about an hour. And I know the the path I take. I know how long it's going to be. But because I don't have my watch on, I'm looking on my left arm every 10 minutes to see what time it is. Now, what does that tell me about my addiction to time scarcity? You know, the piece we have that runs around in us that says, not enough time, not enough time. And here I am. I don't need a watch. I have time to take a walk. I don't need to be a victim of that old piece that had a hold of me, time scarcity. You know how we do it. We oversleep. We jump up. We, turn off the alarm. And then we're running late. And we don't have time to meditate, to pray, to stretch. Or if something is put off, it's usually that. And if we run to the gym and we weigh in, what do you think goes on there? Some of our thinking, this is a chance to look at what is the storyline of your thinking. Yes, it's okay to grieve. People say, I miss the shopping or my old way of doing things. I miss the loss of freedom. I miss my church group. I miss really sitting with my friends. Whatever it is, pay attention to whatever the losses are and give it attention and let it go. Just like I had to do with a bad habit, and I'm still struggling with that, of being into time scarcity, always looking at my watch. I have to let that go and get another sense of space around time and not let that be an inner pressure that keeps pushing and pushing. For what good reason, really? For what good reason? Paying attention to whatever your losses are. It could be, not free to get a haircut yet, not free to hug your grandchild. My grandson, who recently graduated from university, came and had lunch with me yesterday. I fixed him lunch, but I fixed it at a social distance. I fed him his usual lunch on the porch, and I sat across from him a reasonable distance so we could talk. I felt beautifully engaged and very grateful that I was able to have that time with him. I did miss hugging him. He even said, it's really strange to not hug you. And it was for me too. So one thing to know, we all handle grief differently. One thing to know is in our culture, men are not encouraged to handle grief with any kind of sadness or tears. Men, when they're grieving, tend to go into a fix-it mode, or they feel more comfortable with irritation and sometimes anger. So if your beloved is more irritable, more angry, maybe it's time to sit and talk with them and encourage them to know that maybe what they're experiencing is a grief and a stifling of their freedom, and that they don't have to be fixing, that they can learn to be just with their own dear sweet selves and with their families. We have touched on men and their ways of grieving, and to be aware it's different than women usually. We've touched on children, and I've asked you to be very present. It doesn't matter what they're missing. Don't bring up the fact that other people have suffered more. Each and every one of us suffer in our own way, and their losses, even if they seem small to you, are important to them. And your presence and acknowledging that helps them stop so they can begin anew. Now, for women who tend to go around and around trying to fix everything for everybody else, I encourage you to stop and reflect and go to that special place. I encourage you to create a few sessions back and really reflect on what you need to address, pay attention to, and let go. If you need a good sob, get it up and out. Don't suppress it. Suppress grief, suppress sorrow creates physical illness in our bodies. So attend to it in a timely fashion. I'll close today. Before I close, I'll tell you that in the mid-90s, I attended an intensive study and retreat at the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Center in Virginia. Part of being accepted in the group was to be willing to come to the mat in front of 20 other participants and deal with her grief. Having lost my parents when I was young, and having lost my only brother and 2 sisters in untimely deaths, I know all about the howling hurts of grief. And I wondered if I was able to be up to doing that in front of other people. And I found the courage to do so. But the point being, there was a woman there who held out till the very end. And when she was asked why she wouldn't come forward, would she please come forward, she said, "My grief is nothing like what all of you have presented and worked through. My grief was I lost my dog 7 years ago. It was a terrible thing at the time, but it seems I've never gotten over it. But my grief doesn't compare to your grief." She went to the mat finally with courage. And what occurred in that moment of grief work, this woman's dog was a multi-leveled relationship for her. It was they were very, very profoundly attached. The dog was her source of unconditional love when she came home from work at night, her companion, her love, her source of walking and getting exercise. It is amazing how many levels she unpacked that this dog represented. So never underestimate your grief or compare it to another's. Allow yourself to release. To begin anew, we have to release. So in the workshop, one thing was interspersed with the pain and the sorrow was singing and beautiful music that lifted our spirits. And one song that I remember that stays with me is the song that says, "If you want to paint a rainbow, you must use orange and red." So even in this time of confusion, of sadness, of discouragement, use gratitude to be your orange and red. Gratitude opens the heart. Grateful for what you still have. Grateful for what you're able to do. Gratitude opens the heart. And in the heart, we're able to be more connected, really connected to each other. If you want to know better how to relax, how to stop the frenetic worrying, go to LauraBYoung.com/relax. There's a free audio to help you through learning the steps of relaxing. Your body does your mind. If you have grief or need to know how to work with your grief more deliberately, more intentionally, don't minimize your grief, whatever you're going through. Go to LauraBYoung.com and just check on the store link, and under obstacles, 10 obstacles that get in the way of fully living. There's the obstacle on sorrow. Transform your sorrows, losses, and grief into deeper connection to love, joy, and feel true happiness. There I have a 30-minute audio, an ebook, and a workbook. I hope your week goes well. Stay well and think of yourself and learn some new beginning, new ways to have a new beginning. Thank you. See you next week.